It's July 3rd, Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform starts its operation. My name is Svetlana Shevchenko, and now we will be talking about the defense of Ukrainian skies. Joining us online is Yurii Yurii Ihnat, spokesperson of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Good afternoon, Mr. Yurii. Good afternoon. Mr. Yurii, just now there was another drone attack, an missile attack of the north and eastern part of Ukraine. We know that one of UAVs targeted a residential building in Sumy. Can you give us a little bit more details about that? Well, it's not a question to me. I'm based in a different region. You may find more details from the local government probably. The military administration and state emergency service will properly report whether there are casualties and what are the consequences of attack. Yes, I've seen that threat. Even we warned in our Telegram channel that there was a threat for Sumy region, and they really ended up under the attack of Shahed type UAVs. A little bit later we will be able to provide more information on the operation of the air defense forces. Here we will be waiting for further updates. So what about the night attack of the UAVs? There was information that part of them were downed, the rest of them failed to reach their targets. Can you give us more detail on this event? Yes, we have already published the consequences of the work of the air defense forces. They continue working during nighttime, usually with such types of targets as Shahed in the northern axis. This is where usually the Shaheds are coming, but this time they were coming from the south. 13 of them were downed, and one of them we failed to down. However, there was no significant destruction or casualties as a result of this night's attack. This is why we can see that more or less this night was relatively calm. However, we documented the use of S-300 rockets fired from the region of Tokmak in Zaporizhia region. So those are the rockets they used to target different facilities in Zaporizhia region. So that was a consequence of the night's attack. We see that the attacks continue even now, and now even the south of our country ends up under the attack of the enemy. So we still are waiting for the notice about the successful work of our air defense forces. However, we see that there are also some destructions resulting from the attack, which says that it's not always easy to fight the kamikaze drones, the loitering drones as they are also called, because they are actually designed in a way that they are difficult to down, so that our air defense forces have a lot of problems trying to shut them down. They're being fired from a number of directions. Every single Shahed is programmed to move along specific route, which complicates the work of the air defense forces and disseminates the focus of air defense forces and other forces that jointly work in shutting down the drones, which the forces that are the components or the security and defense forces that are used to shut down the drones. The SAMs, portable air defense systems, everything. You see, the enemy does not leave its terroristic ways of conducting the warfare, and we can contemplate they will continue using the UAVs further on for a number of reasons. Well, you mentioned that the enemy changes the directions from where they launch the drones. So what is their complex tactics now? Is it dynamic? Has it changed lately? Well, to understand it, we better check the statistics that we usually disseminate almost every morning about the night strikes. The majority of the strikes are launched in the nighttime because it thus complicates the work of the air defense forces. But again, I'm reminding you, it's not only SAMs that we are used to perceive as the air defense capabilities, but it's also fighter jets and portable rocket systems. This is why the enemy mostly again launches their strikes in the night, but sometimes also during daytime, so it's more complicated to destroy the air targets without the visual contact with them. So according to that statistics, you may see and check when and what was the number. We published these infographics recently. We put all the days, and at first sight you can see what was the intensity of the attacks in, for example, in June. We made the same infographics for May as well, so it's very illustrative. You can see what is the number of air targets that the enemy launches, including both Shaheds and missiles. Those infographics, they include only those targets that were shot down, because we need to understand that there are some that we were not able to shut down. Our country has an expansive territory, and it's sometimes difficult to cover all the territory, to secure all the area, and this is why we have to engage the, for example, fighter jets in fight against the aerial targets. But should it be F-16 and not MiG-21, they would be more efficient. Now there is more intensity in the strikes of the capital by the enemy. Well, you know, now that there hasn't been 2 or 3 days of attacks, it doesn't mean that the intensity increased or decreased. They just planned it that way. I mean, the enemy, maybe they're preparing for another attack in other area, in other direction, and again the reserves of drones and missiles is not infinite with the enemy. In those infographics that I mentioned, you may see the number of the missiles and drones launched, so they need to get them from somewhere. In the case of Shaheds, it's Iran, and they have to draw the missiles from their industrial military complex, but manufacturing of the cruise missile is a lengthy process, and I want to hope that the sanctions impact somehow the industry of the aggressor state, and they feel it difficult to obtain some technical things that they cannot manufacture by themselves. Yeah, talking about the delivery of the drones from Iran, there was information that there was a transport aircraft landing in Russia from Iran. Do you have any information whether it was another delivery of the drones or it was something else? Well, I cannot assert with 100% certainty, but those transportation planes, those transportation flights, they have become regular already, so I wouldn't relate it directly to the flights that they have. They border on the sea, I mean the Caspian Sea, through which they can deliver a bigger number of shipments. You know, they have Astrakhan and Makhachkala ports, and Iran, they have a maritime connections, thus they can deliver the drones easily and in big numbers, so it doesn't make any difference to speculate what and in what number Iran can deliver to Russia, what are the types of weapons, not maybe even the loitering drones, maybe some other type of drones that Russia would be happy to obtain. And the issue with the missiles and rockets, we cannot exclude it as well. Russia still needs that type of ammunition. We have to be ready for such risks, but Ukrainian authorities and all the Ukrainians in fact hope that the global community will press on Iran so it doesn't happen. Well, and what about the training of our pilots for F-16? Maybe you may tell us how close we are to that training, or maybe the training has already started. Well, I cannot I cannot tell you any great news. You've probably heard the address of Valery Zaluzhny, and then there was another address by the president, pretty emotional. We want it to happen as soon as possible, but we don't want to press too much on our partners because we depend a lot on the West in both economy and delivery of weapons. So now we understand that without the support of the West, we will feel it quite difficult to do anything with such a powerful country as Russia. But still, those messages delivered by President and the Commander-in-Chief by, to the West, that every day of delay with the training of the pilots means more lives of our defenders. So we want it to happen the soonest possible. The pilots are ready, all the other services are ready to have this process started, to have the green light on, because there is already a green light for transfer of the fixed-wing aircraft, for training of the pilots, so we have to move on. So what should happen? Should it be the joint resolution of the West, or what should happen? Yeah, the decision is already taken. Ukraine will have F-16, but we just don't need the training process and preparation process to be very lengthy. Our specialists work in Europe and the United States, the Air Force specialists. They're looking for the optimal ways with our partners to solve that issue the soonest possible. What should be the training centers involved, the maintenance centers involved in this process, because that's a very complicated process. It's not a car, it's no tanks. We're talking about the fighter jets, high-tech weapon. We have to calculate all the details here, but we do everything possible to make it happen the soonest possible. Mr. Yurii, thank you very much for your address. I'm reminding you, joining us was Yurii Ihnat, the spokesperson of the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And in 10 minutes, we will have a photo exhibition happening in this studio, so stay tuned.